Then there's Kalia Cup, a.k.a. the Walking Bucket. I actually think I gave her the nickname the Walking Bucket. I don't know if anybody gave it to her before that, but I know I did. And she's done it in the playoffs with the Chicago Sky winning the WNBA title. It's about matchups. They have played the Liberty 3 times. They've beat them 2 out of 3.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
He's just only 2,300 points behind. So even if he does win at Memphis, he's still going to be behind Scottie Scheffler in the points by 300. So why? I mean, I want Scottie Scheffler to show up in Memphis, but does he need to? If Rory's not showing up and the third place guy, even if he wins, isn't going to pass him?
The Smiley Show, only on SportsGrid.
One big problem for NBC, too many on-air cooks for the coverage, particularly on the weekends. Having 4 on-air teams separate time, divide the time, was really outrageous. You had Mike Tirico and his partner. You had Dan Hicks, NBC Sports' lead golf commentator, and his partner. You had Steve Sands from Golf Channel and his partner. And you had Terry Gann, who, by the way, if you don't know, is going to become an NBA play-by-play voice.
NewsWire, only on SportsGrid.
Talk to any player. Hey, used to get 18 sacks, got 7 last year. Maybe it's a defensive scheme. I don't like it at the end of the season. Oh, he's got to earn his trust back. No, he doesn't. Just show up at camp the next year and start to dominate once again, and everybody will forget. You're telling me in game number 1, the Miami Dolphins going deep, Tyreek Hill, 6 catches, 144 yards and 2 touchdowns. Oh, man, we're still working the process. No, you're not. The minute you get back on the field, dap it up, get after it, and have a good season.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Good afternoon. Welcome to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. I'm Craig Mish, locked and loaded. We got a lot to cover on today's show. Major League Baseball's trade deadline is fast approaching. We'll have the very latest. We'll be joined by 2 guests on the show here today. Jeff Nelson, of course, who covers the Marlins and the Yankees and broadcasts for both FanDuel Sports Network and Yes Network. He will join us on the show. Also, FanSided's Robert Murray on the program as well. The latest in sports media with Simon Applebaum, the latest in news and notes in terms of the legality of sports betting going on across the country with Sam McQuillan, and a whole lot more on this edition of the show. Fantasy football talk, too, with Matt Stryker. Boy, we got a lot to cover, so let's get right to it. We'll start off with our first sports betting story of the day, and really good news for one of the more popular sports betting companies here in the United States. That is, of course, DraftKings. If you're not familiar with the story, recently they've come under some fire, as they have previously as well, but this is a new one. In New York, they've dismissed a class action lawsuit against DraftKings that accused the company of deceptive advertising over a $1,000 deposit bonus. One of the judges ruled that the plaintiff failed to present a valid legal argument, noting that DraftKings clearly and prominently disclosed the terms of the offer. Court found that a reasonable consumer would understand that the bonus of 20% of the deposited amount, requiring a $5,000 bonus and $25,000 in wagers to receive the full bonus. So essentially, bonus practices handed out by DraftKings are legal, at least in this case, in the state of New York. Meanwhile, the D.C. Council has effectively shut down a lawsuit that's seeking over $300 million in restitution for gambling losses incurred by sports bettors since the legality of sports betting in 2019. This lawsuit basically says if you bet on sports and you lose, it's your own fault. Not going to get the money back. And the bottom line is, in this case, in D.C., it's not going to be happening. Stay tuned for how this works in other states as well. Bottom line, folks, is if you bet on sports, bet responsibly, and these sort of things won't happen. Responsibility of the Cincinnati Bengals is probably to keep around Trey Hendrickson. Good news for them. Finally, he's reporting to Bengals camp. He's ending his holdout. He's no closer to a deal than he was 2 days ago or even yesterday, but at least he won't get fined $50,000, folks, per day. Let me say that again. $50,000 per day is the fine for the Bengals if you don't show up. He's hoping for some good faith negotiations. We'll see if that happens for Cincinnati. Meanwhile, very talented tight end for the Baltimore Ravens, Isaiah Likely. He has a fractured foot. He's going to have surgery, and going to miss 4 to 6 weeks. He still could possibly be available for the first week of the season, but that's optimism coming from the club. More likely, you will not see him for the first couple weeks of the season. Also, the Cincinnati Bengals have released Zach Moss. They signed him to a 2-year deal last year. He rushed for 242 yards. Chase Brown took over and never looked back. How about the Miami Dolphins and their defensive backs? They lose another one. Kader Kahoyu is going to miss the entire season. He was injured in a practice on Saturday with a knee injury. The Dolphins defensive backs already feeling it without Jalen Ramsey. Now Kahoyu is out for the season. Also, Martin Emerson Jr. carted off with Achilles injury with the Cleveland Browns, and he is going to likely miss the entire season for Cleveland. All right, now let's go over to Major League Baseball and get to the very latest. Small deals happening in baseball, but no large deals just yet. We're probably going to have to wait till tomorrow, 6 p.m., right around that time to get those done. Let's get to the Brewers-Cubs showdown again last night. Andrew Vaughn, a star again for the Brewers. What a great pickup he was from the White Sox. 6 runs driven in, and they beat the Cubs 9-3. Now, Milwaukee has a 2-game lead in the National League Central. Here's Craig Counsell after the game on the difficult pitching performance and shutting down the Brew Crew.
Craig, when it comes to run prevention, just what stood out tonight about the pitching and defense?
Yeah, I mean, we just, from the pitching side, couldn't make big pitches, and we gave them some extra outs, and that always makes it hard. It's something that we've been really good at not doing, really, creating outs. We've done a good job of. So, you put that together, and it, it's 9 runs. So, and then offensively, we created opportunities and didn't cash in early in the game, and so, it was at one point it was 5-2. We'd, had 3 opportunities, men on third, and less than 2 outs, and didn't get any of those runs in. So it just kept the gap a little big, and they obviously had a big swing.
San Diego's surge continues last night. The Padres seemed to be getting hot at the right time, especially with the bats. Manny Machado had a 3-run home run. San Diego beats the New York Mets by a final of 7-1. And some bad news for the Mets in this one is Juan Soto fouled the ball off his back foot. Carlos Mendoza discussed the injury. It does seem for the time being to be just day-to-day.
Carlos, what's the concern for Soto right now?
Well, I mean, he's pretty sore, but we took some X-rays and they were negative. So that's good news. That's good news there. So he's day to day. We'll see where we are for tomorrow, if he's going to be available for the lineup or a player during the game at some point.
I know that occasionally you take an X-ray and then a couple days later, after swelling goes down, you got to check it again. Are you guys confident that this is a negative X-ray, or could that be a situation like that?
Yeah, I was just talking to the trainers, and I asked the same questions. Are we planning on, doing some more imaging? And as of right now, the answer is no. X-rays, and let's see how he progresses day to day. So, that's what we got so far.
What about Pete? How's Pete doing? Alonso, his knee?
Yeah, he's fine.
How much of a scare is that, just with Soto, obviously, his importance?
Yeah, not a good feeling, especially when you watch him go down like that, and he looks like he's a lot of pain there. Then, he hits that ball, and he looks uncomfortable running down the line. First thing the trainer's telling me, I got to go out there and I got to take X-rays here. So you're kind of just holding your breath there. And then once I got the news, obviously a sense of relief there, but day to day.
Dodgers beat the Reds yesterday 5-4. Will Smith with an RBI double. Freddie Freeman also had 3 hits. Seems like the Dodgers are getting Tyler Glasnow back in a good place ahead of their postseason run. Here he is on his performance afterward.
Tyler, when you look at your outing, just kind of how things started, you were excellent. Then kind of seemed a little later into your outing, things kind of tapered off. What were you feeling, I guess, in this one?
Yeah, I felt good early, and then it just kind of lost feel towards the end. I'm not quite sure what it was. Just kind of wasn't executing in the zone.
Those 2 home runs, is that kind of the execution you're talking about right there? It's just that was missing in those moments?
Very hittable pitches. Not really getting on it properly, and just very hittable pitches, yeah.
Was the slider in particular that was kind of giving trouble later in the
Yeah, I think it's just not a lot of sharpness to it. Just left it up in the zone a lot, and it kind of just spun. It was almost like a bad heater, so.
Tougher to command, just with the weather and the humidity out there?
I don't know. I just think it was just a bad slider. and then kind of predictability at the end, like not throwing other stuff for a strike other than a heater and just leaving stuff over the plate.
One final out west to bring you: the Mariners beat the A's beat the Mariners 6-1, as Logan Evans, who's done such a nice job for Seattle, got hit 6 earned runs, 4 1/3 innings pitched. All right, now over in the American League East, the Yankees battling the Rays. Max Fried went 6 2/3. He gave up 2 earned runs. And New York beats Tampa Bay by a final of 7-5. Cody Bellinger also hit a 3-run home run. Max Fried pitched well in this one. The Red Sox even up their series with the Twins at 2 apiece, and they'll decide that series coming up today at approximately 1:10 Eastern, so that's 1 hour from now. Yesterday, the Baltimore Orioles swept a doubleheader, which is rare, and they did it over the first-place Toronto Blue Jays Game 1 final, 16-4, and they also won Game 2 by a final of 3-2. We'll take a quick timeout. We'll be joined by FanDuel Sports Network analyst and Yes Network analyst Jeff Nelson with the latest on the Marlins and the Yankees next.
Enter into the magical world of McLuck.com, where even the smallest of spins can win real cash prizes. Adventure into over 1,000 of the best Vegas-style slot games. So what are you waiting for? Unlock your free welcome offer today. Join the fun where winners play and players win.
We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. I want this to be the place that people come to. There is going to be an energy to game time decisions that you will feel night in and night out. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune in to Game Time Decisions weekdays on SportsGrid.
The game is on. The stakes are high. But the action isn't just on the field.
He's rearranging that wrist. Get it inside!
SportsGrid's in-game live. Your ultimate second screen experience.
Just a little flyer, couple of 15.5-point live line.
Every prop, every play, every day.
Anything can happen. That's complete chaos.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Did you know sportsbooks tend to draw up tighter bet lines for events that get even more bettors, like championship games or major matchups? My tip, try betting on less popular sports. You might have a better shot at beating those odds. Now, go get lucky. See you in Las Vegas. Let's get lucky.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. Let's check in with Jeff Nelson of FanDuel Sports Network and also Yes Network, of course, broadcasting on the call for the Marlins and Cardinals series. And then, of course, we'll be back doing Marlins games in about a week or two and back on Yes Network as well. So we'll cover both teams with him as we get closer to the trade deadline tomorrow. Nelly, thanks for making some time here on the show again. Great to see you.
My pleasure, Mish.
All right, so let's get started. And I want to start with Sandy Alcantara. I know that people are going to lean on me anyway to ask me what's going on in terms of trade, but I think it's more important for me to ask you what he looks like at this point, because Look, he's been very effective his last 2 times out, but it's been in a different way, as you noted on the broadcast,
Right.
and always very eloquently can put it. So curveball usage is up. Do you think that what he's doing right now can be supremely effective either for the Marlins or another team? Because the results are there, but is that what other teams will look for? Just results? You tell me.
I think they do want to look for results because they want to make sure that I mean, he was not very good at all during the beginning of the year. The last 2 starts were good. Like you mentioned, I mentioned last night, he's doing it a different way, so a lot of off speed. My opinion that if he does get traded and he goes to another team, I think he goes back to fastball changeup and what he did in 2022 to win the Cy Young. He still throws 98. I think he's a little bit timid now. I think he's just trying to get results, and right now the only way he's getting them is with a lot of off speed. I think if he goes somewhere else, you're going to see fastball changeup again.
Yeah, it's really interesting for me to see sort of this type of Sandy because I just never have seen it before. But either
Right.
way, we'll either today or tomorrow as the trade deadline comes at 6 p.m. Eastern. All right. So on a positive note for Miami, one player that we know that will be sticking around. By the way, Nelly, I don't know that we would have said that a few months ago, but absolutely now Kyle Stowers is having one of the best offensive seasons in Marlins history and definitely in recent history. 23 home runs, 63 runs driven in. And you're watching the same thing as me. He's just like almost impossible to get out consistently for pitchers. What has changed for him?
Well, he looks, if you watch his swing, it's nice and level. He really doesn't have the uppercut. He doesn't chase up top anymore. When he was going, or even in spring training in the beginning of the year, you could get him with fastballs up. He's staying away from that pitch, and he's hitting a lot of pitches about belt high. He can cover the outside part of the plate. He's got good plate awareness as far as pitches and where the strike zone is, and he just exudes confidence. And when you're having a great year at the plate, if you have a rough day, it's easy to get over. If you're struggling day after day, it's really tough because you start battling yourself mentally. With Baltimore, there was just no room. If he was a superstar, if they would have known this, they probably would have never traded him. But there's just no room in that outfield. I think Peter Bennett did a great job with that trade, getting Connor Norby, and hopefully he stays healthy, and that will be a positive for the Marlins. But right now, he's their best hitter. I still don't understand why he's not hitting second or third. I'd want to see this guy as many times as possible. I mean, he's still hitting fourth to seventh, so that's a little bit mind-boggling for me.
Well, no home runs against left-handed pitching. None. Zero this season. Every single one against the righty. But
Yeah.
his numbers are good. His numbers are good against righties anyway, though. There's just no home runs. Interesting there. Okay, so now let's get to the Yankees, who defeated the Rays yesterday, so they get back on track. And I still think they're very well within striking distance of the Toronto Blue Jays, but there's been quite a bit of injury news with the Yankees, Nelly, as you know. So I'd ask you to sort of walk me through this one because playing in the big leagues, you certainly can speak to this. So Aaron Judge has somewhat of a UCL injury on a throw. Look, I don't really buy what I hear from team speak as far as injuries are concerned because they're always going to play the positive here. Now, Aaron Judge, I know can DH. He seems to be, according to what they're saying, almost ready to return as just a DH. And then I saw Jack Curry report, Nelly, that they got Austin Slater, who's an outfielder, and I know can defend as well. Are we correlating those two things together? How are they going to fit this moving forward?
Yeah, there was reports if Aaron Judge was going to have surgery that they were going to wind up maybe shopping Goldschmidt and Bellinger. That's still a possibility. Right now, it seems like they're having patchwork as far as filling in holes, and they're trying to get right-handed hitters that hit well against lefties. But if you look at the lefties that they're going to face, the Blue Jays really don't have any lefties. Crochet's the only guy, and he pretty much dominates against anyone. And same with Skubal in Detroit. You look at what Austin Slater's done against lefties, and all you hear is it's a strong 261. I don't know when 261 became strong, but that's what what today's game is. I think I think the Yankees go out and they try to perceive Judge's injury and probably not alarm too many fans or too many media members. When the UCL strain, that's usually a precursor to Tommy John. You hope not. And when he does come back, and it might be in the Texas series, he's going to miss the Miami series over the weekend. He's going to be strictly a DH. Where does that leave Stanton? He's going to have to go out to the outfield, and that's all of a sudden could become an injury. I just don't really understand where the Yankees go. I think the next, 24 to 36 hours to that deadline is really going to decide what they make. If they make a big move, then they're all in. But so far, the moves that they made, I'm not really sure which way they're going.
Yeah, they really haven't done very much to really show that they're going to make a big push here. But it's, honestly,
Right.
though, Nelly, a lot of teams have not yet. I mean, I don't know why, but it's outside of the Devers deal a few months ago. No significant name has really been moved. Back to Judge here for a minute. You mentioned that, and I do remember Bryce Harper having that and having surgery, and Albert Pujols having this. Oh, if you remember, and having surgery too. I mean, I don't
Yes.
want to on Judge, but I guess conceivably the idea would be he could play the rest of the season with this and then evaluate after the year and decide, right? Does that sound fair?
I think so. He just couldn't play the outfield. He's not going to be able to throw. And with Bryce Harper, when he did come back, and he came back a lot earlier than expected, he went to first base just so he didn't have to make that throw from the outfield. Is that something Judge is going to do next year when spring training, if he does have to have that surgery? I'd much rather have him in the lineup than in the outfield. If that's going to be the case, at least he's a threat. He's a good defensive player, great defensive player, but it'll be interesting to see if he does come back in those 10 days.
Yeah, we will see after the Miami series. All right, thanks, Nelly, for coming on the show. Enjoy the rest of the series in St. Louis, and I'll see you in person very soon. Thanks for coming on.
Okay, thanks, Mish.
We'll be right back.
New to casinos and not sure what to play? Well, try Blackjack first. It has a lower house advantage compared to other table games, making it especially player-friendly. Now, go get lucky. See you in Las Vegas. Let's get lucky.
Her and Howard at the 2-3 are extremely dangerous. But it's playoffs. And it's defense, and it's rebounding. You know the game, offense exciting, defense wins games, rebounds win championships. Well, they got BG and Brianna Jones at that 4-5 combination.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
Tiger used to really annoy me because all he did was win, and I was like, gosh, I just want to see some drama. I want to see Phil challenge him. I want to see some magic down the stretch and have Tiger pull it out in miracle-like fashion, like Rory just did at the Masters, when something is really compelling like that. Scotty sucks the drama right out of the golf tournament as well. He just doesn't do it with all the panache.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
He was already doing the dusting of the spot of where this one was going to go after Augusta this year. And the players, he's had this insane start to the year. We won 3 times. Surely Scotty Scheffler isn't going to have a resume by July that's going to be way better. It's just, there's no way. But here we are. It's Scotty Scheffler with 2 majors on the year.
The Smiley Show, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. I'm Craig Mish. Time now for us to dive into the latest in the National Football League and training camp. In this edition of our Sound Off, we'll hear from the new head coach of the Chicago Bears, the quarterback of the Philadelphia Eagles, and then our producer Frank is going to delight us with some audio and video from the New York Jets great wide receiver Garrett Wilson. Time now for the SportsGrid Sound Off. I think after yesterday's show, it seems like I'm learning that these head coaches are obsessed with having their players sweat and work in the heat. Because for the second straight day, we're hearing a head coach say basically he loves the fact that the guys are out there working hard. Look, they're professional athletes. They are the best in the world. But I got to tell you, for those of you who don't live in a place where, like I do right now, where it's like 100 degrees every day, it ain't easy. But here is Ben Johnson, head coach of the Bears, so excited to see his guys sweat, work hard, and probably nearly pass out.
Really enjoy being out there and the heat and the humidity being up like it was. I feel like that's really training camp to me, because that's where, as Coach Randall Ellis said to our guys a couple of days ago, that's where the boys separate themselves from the men, and vice versa. So it's good to see who rises to the top and who can push through when physically you don't feel your best. And it sounds like we'll have another day like that here today. Had a couple new faces out there with Colson getting more reps and Luther making his appearance, and that was good to see. And we'll see if we can piggyback and have another good one today. Open it up from there.
With Colson getting more involved, what have you seen from him in the early stages? I know you guys were very impressed with his rehab, but now he's doing the football stuff more readily. What have you seen?
Yeah, you can't gauge until you get him on the field the football instincts, and it showed up from the get-go. He had a particular block the other day where the defensive end looked to spin out of it, and he was able to anticipate that and able to stay on top of it. So those are things that really stand out to a coaching staff that maybe if you're just a regular bystander, you might not see. And it's really encouraging when you look at a young player like that and the growth that he's going to be able to have, the more reps that he gets.
Nothing against the Heat. Nothing against Ben Johnson. Everyone's going to be mad at me now that I'm ripping Ben Johnson. I'm not. I'm just saying. Be careful. It's hot out there. All right. Good stuff here coming up from Jalen Hurts, and certainly coming off a championship. There's still a lot to prove because, again, it's just so difficult in the National Football League to win back-to-back. So here is Hurts. His training camp is now fully underway, getting closer to the preseason and some of the things that they are working on to get back to the Super Bowl this year.
Yeah, overall, I think, fatigue makes cowards of us all. And, these last 2 days have been very challenging from a heat standpoint. And so everybody collectively as a group just continue to push through those things, control what you can. I think this is a good test and a measure of where we are right now and where we desire to go. So, ran the ball well, defense played very well, connected on some in the past game and got to finish on some. Ultimately, it's just great competition, and that's what it's about in training camp. You talk about building that foundation for a team and establishing the right temperament of a team, and we're coming out here and competing every day and getting good competition, good work.
Couple cliches in there from Jalen Hurts. Never hurt anybody. All right, now let's go to the New York Jets. Certainly, they're up against it going into the season. Kind of low expectations, fair to say, from a lot of people in the industry. But that doesn't stop Garrett Wilson, their great wide receiver, from saying that the harder that they practice, the more this could potentially pay off when the games begin.
Yeah, just the competitiveness. Not just talking about being competitive, like, no, you got to train that way. It's got to feel like that at practice. It's got to feel like if you lose, it sucks at practice. It can't just be, we'll turn it on when the game comes, right? And I think that's the main thing that I see that's different, just the way we're practicing, the intensity, the stakes. It feels like there's stakes, depending on which period it is, the stakes feel higher based on whether it's a competition red zone or a 2-minute. It feels like you won the drill when you won the drill, right? And it feels like you lost when you lost. And to me, that's how I like it. It's practice, yes, but there's also an opportunity to practice winning and get that feeling and what it takes to just do it, right, on a consistent basis. And I think it starts out here. So,
coming up next, it's time to check in with Sam McQuillan from Legal Sports Report. Is it possible that those of you who are watching in the state of Georgia could have legalized sports betting? I feel like we've been down this road quite a bit, but we'll try one more time with Sam. So don't go away. More NewsWire on SportsGrid coming up right after this quick timeout. We'll be back right after this. Don't go away.
Did you know sportsbooks tend to draw up tighter bet lines for events that get even more bettors, like championship games or major matchups? My tip, try betting on less popular sports. You might have a better shot at beating those odds. Now, go get lucky. See you in Las Vegas. Let's get lucky.
To be able to get in the college football playoff. And the 3 games I mentioned, if they win at least one of those, guess what? They'll finish 10-2, and they'll be in the college football playoff without fail. So I think when it all comes down to it, that's really what this is about, team success as much as it is individual success. And if Arch has this team playing well and winning 10 games, I think the Heisman numbers are going to be there to back that up just based off of the offense that they play and how they move the football.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Over a full season, is he going to be Mike Piazza? No, of course not. But I think he's going to be a guy who could help your team here. My only problem really with Alvarez is this, as Craig and I have talked about so many times, catcher is deep. If you're in a 2-catcher league, by the way, please, for the love of God, I never understood why anybody plays in 2-catcher leagues. But in a 1-catcher league, who's the catcher you're dropping?
Fantasy Sports Today, only on SportsGrid.
Great to have Sam McQuillan back from Legal Sports Report in the house. Let's dive into the very latest on sports betting. We've got some news on BetMGM, and also we say goodbye to another sports betting operator. But, Sam, do we say hello to the state of Georgia? Man, I feel like I've been teased by Georgia. I feel like I've been down this road before, and it is in the South where it's much harder to get sports betting legalized than in some other places. But, again, thanks for coming on the show. Is Georgia a real possibility here over the next year?
It's definitely a possibility, Craig, but how big of a possibility is kind of the question that remains to be seen. You mentioned we've talked about Georgia a lot over the past couple of years, and that's because they've flirted with the idea of sports betting, but never really got a deal done. And what happened this week is they restarted that whole process yet again because, the legislature meets every year, considers something, doesn't do it, but it keeps getting put before its desk. It's going to be a huge state. If it ever does go online, it would be about the 5th largest active sports betting market. So there's a lot of care from the sports betting companies to keep doing this and keep trying. This week, lawmakers met with what's called the House Study Committee on Gaming. It was mostly a general discussion on gambling in the state of Georgia, which is pretty restricted in general, but sports betting was also on the table as part of what's expected to be a months-long process to study how we do this, how many licenses we might give out, which companies might be involved. So the committee is going to meet through the fall and has all the way up until December 1st to make recommendations for a bill that would create the framework of sports betting. So it is still a very long road ahead. We're not even talking about a bill being made yet. We're talking about legislators coming together. But that is good news considering that, there's a lot of time out in the calendar to get this whole thing through and that they're being so thoughtful in this part of the process about it. Again, Georgia's a huge untapped market. You got crazy college football fan bases there. You got pro teams in pretty much every major sport. And a lot of Georgians who are into betting are driving across state lines. There was actually a 100% increase in Georgians trying to access legal sports books, which of course they're not able to do in Georgia. But this company, GeoComply, tracked that they were trying to access it from within the state of Georgia. So I wouldn't hold your breath here. This is sort of like lawmakers finally setting a meeting to plan a meeting for how sports betting might look. So it's very not far along in the process at all. The real question is going to be whether they can all get on the same page. In the past, they've agreed that gambling should happen. It's happening anyway. They need to regulate it, but they haven't agreed on how exactly to do that. There's religious groups, of course, which are very strong in the Georgia legislature, which have opposed legislation in the past. So they're going to have to all figure out how to get on the same page here. But it's getting late early for Georgia. They're one of only 11 states that doesn't have sports betting. So they really need to figure this out sooner rather than later.
Yeah, it does feel like we hear a lot about Georgia, maybe Texas, as possibilities. But until it actually, takes some steps forward, it doesn't feel like we've made a lot of progress over the last year with that. All right, now let's get to some good news here for BetMGM. Certainly one of the companies that seems to be at least, fighting to stay within that top three, top four sports betting operator range. And they get some good news here, which you could read about at Legal Sports Report, but I don't want to ruin the story. So I'll let you tell us more.
Yeah, BetMGM, like you point out, Craig, is definitely hanging on, hovering right behind the FanDuels and DraftKings of the world, which are just at such a competitive advantage right now. You can't really get in that group, but they're right there with the Caesarses, and ESPN Bet is below them, so they're in a decent spot. They actually had a really great quarter this past quarter, and they're crediting what they're calling a smarter approach to sports betting and player quality, not just being lucky and being on the winning side of more bets. Of course, the past 2 quarters have been really bad for sports books, which just got hammered in the NFL playoffs, and then that continued into March Madness. But it looks like Q2 is shaping up to be much better for them. BetMGM saw a 56% jump in sports betting revenue, and they did that while cutting marketing expenses. And their CEO kind of talked about that, saying that we're attracting more quality players and filtering out the ones that maybe aren't necessarily as valuable to us, and perhaps diluting numbers a little bit. So they intentionally try to cut out some of that active player base that is low value and maybe not cross-selling over to some other more premium, higher margin products, such as parlays, which actually jumped 5% as a percentage of all bets. Sports books really want you to bet those high margin bets. So that's one of the reasons that they saw progress there. And that it helped them achieve $86 million in earnings before debt and other taxes and other expenses we talk about, which is just a massive jump from 2024 when they had only $8 million. So they're projecting $150 million by the end of the year. Again, kind of signaling that they're in a strong position to round it out. And it'll be really interesting to see, heading into NFL season with these things that have worked during the slower time in the sports betting calendar. Obviously, baseball is going on, but there's not a ton else right now, and especially activity-wise, the NFL and college football as well is just a huge time. So it'll be really interesting to see how they try to swing that momentum into the NFL season. It'll be interesting to see how DraftKings and FanDuel respond to one of their competitors making headwinds, whether that leads to more, better promotions, better products for people. I think those are things that are all being talked about right now. So if you're a bettor, even if you don't use BetMGM, you should benefit from the fact that they're making headwinds and the competition in general is increasing right here. So really great quarter for BetMGM, and we should hear similar stories from other operators as they report in the coming weeks.
Good stuff, Sam. Finally, let's close it out with a topic that we've discussed over the last couple of years here, is that without new states legalizing sports betting, it's becoming increasingly difficult for some of those sports betting operators who do not have a big impact here in the United States to stay. Now, that's no indictment on the next company that we're going to discuss, Betfred, because they've been around for a long time outside of the U.S., Sam. But as we've seen with some other companies as well, with no new markets opening up, if they're not able to get a bigger share or a piece of the pie of sports betting in the United States, maybe it's just best to operate outside.
Yeah, that's certainly what Betfred decided this week when they announced that they would be leaving Pennsylvania tomorrow, which marks its last state that's going to be exiting in the U.S. It's been here since 2020, was at one point active in over half a dozen states. But like you mentioned, Craig, it's just there's no new states, there's no new opportunity. Only so many people turn 21 every year to acquire new customers. And meanwhile, you've got DraftKings, you've got FanDuel gobbling up most of the customers. So if you're a Betfred customer, you're probably already betting with the competition as well. No new bets are being accepted at this time, but if you do have a bet in Pennsylvania on Betfred, you'll be able to cash out or settle the bet until tomorrow. And if your bet is something that isn't going to happen until after tomorrow, they're going to mail you a check as well. So don't worry about getting your money or your outstanding bets if you are in Pennsylvania. But like you mentioned, Craig, it is part of a broader trend. We've seen companies like Betway, Tipico, Sports Illustrated, Sportsbook, all just in the past 18 months decide that it was too expensive to compete here. Betfred actually took a $91 million loss last year in the U.S. So it's really showing that, it's just not worth the cost of admission. The year before that, interestingly enough, they're actually profitable in the U.S. So you got to wonder what changed so quickly in that time period. I think maybe they just kind of ran out of new customers. And like you mentioned, they are very strong internationally. We've seen other brands, hesitant to come into the U.S. because it's so expensive, not only because you have to compete with DraftKings and FanDuel and everybody, but also because states are charging ultra high tax rates. States are charging ultra high license fees. It's becoming just harder in general to do business from a money standpoint in general, let alone the competition. So yeah, Betfred closing up shop, will be gone by tomorrow. We'll see if any sportsbook fills this void. It'll mean that there's a license up for grabs in Pennsylvania, which is one of the biggest states for sports betting and is home to a lot of other operators. At this point, we're getting to a time when no one's rushing into the market. Everyone's kind of exiting, leaving, or selling off their business. We saw PointsBet do something similar. At that time, we had Fanatics jump in. We had ESPN Bet jump in as well. But right now, there's no players really like that who are waiting to get into the market. You got to wonder how much longer it's going to be, a market we talk about with all those other books in general before it's just, 2 or 3.
Great stuff as always, Sam, and we'll read more about this over at LegalSportsReport.com. Thanks again for appearing on NewsWire today. Have a great week.
You too. Thanks, Craig.
Coming up next, Simon Applebaum joins us. From the podcast Tomorrow Will Be Televised. Would you be surprised to know that the lead for Simon as we begin in a few minutes is discussing the Savannah Bananas and their new TV deal? We'll hit it next.
Then there's Kalia Copper, a.k.a. the Walking Bucket. I actually think I gave her the nickname the Walking Bucket. I don't know if anybody gave it to her before that, but I know I did. And she's done it in the playoffs with the Chicago Sky winning the WNBA title. It's about matchups. They have played the Liberty 3 times. They've beat them 2 out of 3.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
He's just only 2,300 points behind. So even if he does win at Memphis, he's still going to be behind Scottie Scheffler in the points by 300. So why? I mean, I want Scottie Scheffler to show up in Memphis, but does he need to? If Rory's not showing up and the third place guy, even if he wins, isn't going to pass him?
The Smiley Show, only on SportsGrid.
One big problem for NBC, too many on-air cooks for the coverage, particularly on the weekends. Having 4 on-air teams separate time, divide the time, was really outrageous. You had Mike Tirico and his partner. You had Dan Hicks, NBC Sports' lead golf commentator, and his partner. You had Steve Sampson, Golf Channel, and his partner. And you had Terry Gann, who, by the way, if you don't know, is going to become an NBA play-by-play voice.
NewsWire, only on SportsGrid.
Talk to any player. Hey, used to get 18 sacks, got 7 last year. Maybe it's a defensive scheme I don't like it at the end of the season. Oh, he's got to earn his trust back. No, he doesn't. Just show up at camp the next year and start to dominate once again, and everybody will forget. You're telling me in game number 1, the Miami Dolphins going deep, Tyreek Hill, 6 catches, 144 yards and 2 touchdowns. Oh, man, we're still working the process. No, you're not. The minute you get back on the field, dap it up, get after it, and have a good season.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. Let's bring in Simon Applebaum. His podcast Tomorrow Will Be Televised is available for download wherever you download your podcasts and listen as well. And Simon's here with us. We're going to get into a little NFL discussion, but for the first time ever since Simon has joined me here on this show, the first story that we begin with in the middle of the baseball trade deadline and the NFL training camp opening up and the preseason and everything around the corner. I mean, it seems a little bit, Simon, like a joke that we would start off with Savannah Bananas. But let's be clear, it is not. I mean, these guys are doing an incredible job getting attention, and other companies are taking notice, and it seems like HBO is the next one on deck.
Absolutely, Craig, and good to be here. And it's HBO Max, and more importantly, it's True TV, which, by the way, a year from now is going to be separated from HBO Max and HBO and the rest of Warner Brothers because of the new two-company deal that's going on. The Savannah Bananas until now have been the Harlem Globetrotters of baseball, and they've done very well. The interesting thing as far as television is concerned is you don't know really where to find them. ESPN has done some games. Roku's been doing a game or two. CW did a game this past weekend. And True TV, which has not done a lot of exclusive sports since they made the move almost a year ago to be a primetime sports network, they did 5 games last year. Now, starting next month, they're going to be doing a 19-game season. It's going to be running games in prime time for the most part on Friday and Saturday nights. And it is also going to have, for the very first time, you might say, the Bananas version of a World Series. There's going to be an actual championship tournament where the Bananas and the 3 teams they play, the Party Animals, the Texas Tailgaters, and the Firefighters, are all going to be in a tournament in early October, and the winner will play a championship game. Tropical Smooth Cafe, by the way, the fast-growing restaurant chain, is the presenting sponsor of True TV. This is very big for True TV as much as for the Bananas because True TV right now needs exclusive sports franchises. Right now, it's basically when they do sports in terms of live events, it's simulcasting until recently the NBA, the NHL, everything is on TBS or TNT. They don't have anything really of their own in terms of live coverage. This is their first effort. And if they work with this, they could be doing more in the future, especially again, when a year from now, you will see Warner Bros. Discovery split from one company to 2. Warner Brothers, which will have HBO and HBO Max, and Discovery Global, which will have True TV, TBS, TNT, and so forth.
Now, Simon, our next topic here is always one that shakes me up a little bit, is thinking that the NFL could have these guys play 18 games during the regular season. And, you know, Simon, part of me understands it because the NFL preseason has just become, let's just be honest, a joke. I mean, they've now shortened it to just a couple of games. Nobody plays. And you know, people are paying full time for season tickets to get these tickets that they don't even go to as well. And so it's like, why not just convert that to the regular season? But with the injuries in the NFL, my gosh, like I know it's worth it for the money, but is it worth it for the players?
Well, it seems that the Players Association is leaning toward the idea of an 18-game regular season. And Roger Goodell and his people at the NFL are also leaning toward because, for one thing, they could create other packages. Remember, they're talking about a multi-game international package that, let's say, a Netflix or a Prime Video or a mega content service could get. If you go to an 18-game season, you could very easily put 16 international games, at least for the first 16 weeks. That could be a separate package that could be sold somewhere else, aside from the broadcast networks or cable networks. The problem is the owners are very divided about the 18-game season. They don't want to pay more to the players or to the Players Association. So right now, it looks like this year, of course, this season they won't do it. Next season, it looks like they won't do it. The question is, will they do it starting in 2027 if the NFL is leaning toward, hey, we've got to move more of our games to mega content services and get them away from, NBC, ABC, ESPN, ABC, CBS, and Fox.
Now, I'm familiar, of course, Simon, with Formula One. I'm not all that familiar with Formula GT. So tell me exactly about this sport and what it could potentially bring to auto racing.
Well, Formula GT, which has been put together by some of the people involved with Formula One, is a new auto racing circuit that is going to start next spring. From what we understand, I understand they had an event in Los Angeles to talk about it. There's going to be 6 races, 2 of them in the United States, Miami and Los Angeles. They're going to have a race in Mexico City, a race in Dubai, a race in Singapore, and another location. They're going to use what they call hyper cars, GT, like the most advanced cars in auto racing. So this is not going to be electric power like Formula F is going to be, E is going to be, or Formula One right now. So this is going to be an idea to make a hyper car league that would allow celebrities to be involved. It looks like this is going to be designed for mega content play. So it could go on, for example, a Prime Video. It could go on a Peacock. It could go on HBO Max. It could go on Paramount Plus, especially now that we're very close to seeing Paramount split up, or could split up, when the Paramount Skydance merger happens, which will be next week. So this is a league to keep an eye out for. There are people in the auto racing league, by Formula One, behind this, and they're picking really good cities that are going to be doing their own courses. It should be a lot of fun. Now the question is, what kind of TV coverage are they going to get?
Speaking of TV coverage, I know women's sports has gained a ton of popularity, ratings, and we're hearing a lot of money as well. I know that on your upcoming podcast, you're going to have the new president or CEO of this new network called Swerve. Tell us more about that.
The person we're talking about is Christy Tanner. She's the former executive at CBS and CBS Interactive. And yes, tomorrow on Tomorrow Be Televised, 3 p.m. New Pacific on TalkShoe, Facebook, and YouTube, Christy will be along to talk about the project that she is involved with as a chairperson. It's called Swerve Sports. It just started a week ago on the Roku channel and on Pluto TV, the multi-channel bundle, which is owned by Paramount. And it's going to be all women's sports, a lot of live events, including Athletes Unlimited, women's pro football, rugby, volleyball, and many other events. And we're going to see how fast this could be. The bottom line is we now have a three-way race in terms of women's sports with Women's Sports Network, with All Women's Sports Network, with Whoopi Goldberg investing, and now we have Christy Tanner and her group, Sports Sports. And by the way, there's a Combat Sports, a separate channel that's also running on various smart TV services. So that's Christy Tanner tomorrow on Tomorrow Be Televised, 3 p.m. Eastern, New Pacific.
All right, Simon, 30 seconds left. I know we bid farewell to Ian Baker Finch in the booth, legendary broadcaster from CBS.
Yeah, CBS Sports wrapping up its PGA coverage. It'll be the last one for a really good analyst, Ian Baker Finch, former pro golfer. He decided this week to call it a day, and it will be a lot of interesting tears in the CBS Sports booth this weekend when Jim Nansen comes to say goodbye to Ian. He's a dynamite person. You guys, take care.
Simon Applebaum, his podcast tomorrow will be televised. We will have an update on the shooting at NFL headquarters from our friends at Front Office Sports next.
Then there's Kalia Copper, a.k.a. the Walking Bucket. I actually think I gave her the nickname the Walking Bucket. I don't know if anybody gave it to her before that, but I know I did. And she's done it in the playoffs with the Chicago Sky winning the WNBA title. It's about matchups. They have played the Liberty 3 times. They've beat them 2 out of 3.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
He's just only 2,300 points behind. So even if he does win at Memphis, he's still going to be behind Scottie Scheffler in the points by 300. So why? I mean, I want Scottie Scheffler to show up in Memphis, but does he need to? If Rory's not showing up and the third place guy, even if he wins, isn't going to pass him?
The Smiley Show, only on SportsGrid.
One big problem for NBC, too many on-air cooks for the coverage, particularly on the weekends. Having 4 on-air teams separate time, divide the time, was really outrageous. You had Mike Tirico and his partner. You had Dan Hicks, NBC Sports' lead golf commentator, and his partner. You had Steve Sands from Golf Channel and his partner. And you had Terry Gann, who, by the way, if you don't know, is going to become an NBA play-by-play voice.
NewsWire, only on SportsGrid.
Talk to any player. Hey, used to get 18 sacks, got 7 last year. Maybe it's a defensive scheme I don't like it at the end of the season. Oh, he's got to earn his trust back. No, he doesn't. Just show up at camp the next year and start to dominate once again, and everybody will forget. You're telling me in game number 1, the Miami Dolphins going deep, Tyreek Hill, 6 catches, 144 yards and 2 touchdowns. Oh, man, we're still working in process. No, you're not. The minute you get back on the field, dap it up, get after it, and have a good season.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire. Some devastating news from the world of the National Football League and the business world as well, as there was an open shooting several days ago in Park Avenue, which occurred at the head office of the National Football League. For those of you who are not familiar with the story, let's catch you up on the very latest. Our friends at Front Office Sports have an update. You can see Front Office Sports every single day here on SportsGrid. Take a listen.
Bring in FOS reporter Amanda Kristovich, who was at the scene of where this happened. Amanda, what do we know so far? So at this time, there are 4 people who were killed last night, one of which was a New York City police officer. Another person who NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell announced was an NFL employee, was shot, is in critical condition but stable, I believe, or was stable as of this morning. The NYPD and local authorities are still working on information about the shooter's motive, but there has been an identification of the shooter, and he wrote in a note that he was in fact targeting the NFL. There were other businesses in the building, but he was looking for the NFL, even though he didn't get to the floors that the NFL was located. And the reason that he was looking into the NFL is because he claimed in his note that he had CTE, which is a neurological disease that many deceased former NFL players have been found to have. And he blamed the NFL for that, and so he was looking for the headquarters.
And there's been more information that's come out saying that the suspect had been dealing with mental health illness as well. And with that note, as you mentioned, targeting the NFL, what do you make of this awful, awful tragedy in that a suspect was unfortunately targeting the NFL and looking to get his brain studied? There's just a lot here to unpack, and it's not good. It's very devastating. What do you make of all of this?
I think the most important thing that was brought to my attention by Dr. Robert Cantu, who is one of the foremost CT experts in the country. He works with the NFL. He has, he is running many studies on this issue. He said to me, I just want anybody to know that if they played football, if they think they're exhibiting the psychiatric symptoms that are often associated with CTE, they should go get help, because there is help to be had. There is help to be received. There are therapies, there are medications, there are treatments. It's not hopeless. And this individual, unfortunately, believed that he had gotten CTE from playing high school football. And instead of seeking assistance and seeking help, he decided to, commit a really, really violent act. And that is unfortunate. He also shot himself in the chest, which is something that other NFL players have done in order to preserve their brains for potential study.
Yeah, Junior Seau, obviously one of the bigger ones as well. What has the NFL's response been to this horrible situation?
Yeah, so NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell put out a statement confirming that one NFL employee was shot, but as I said before, in stable condition. The NFL has basically, and the NFLPA have obviously offered their condolences. Commissioner Goodell told everyone at that NFL HQ office to work from home or to just completely take the day off, and that they're going to be working on security measures. But, beyond that, we don't have a ton of information. There was an athletic report that the NFL employee who was shot was continuing to call his colleagues upstairs in the NFL HQ offices as he was being taken to the hospital to continue to warn them, which is truly remarkable. But other than that, we really haven't heard much from the league.
All right, that's the very latest from Front Office Sports. You can watch their show exclusively here on SportsGrid as well. All right, couple of trades in Major League Baseball that we will tell you about and give you the names. And, certainly, trade deadline is tomorrow at 6 p.m. We haven't seen any real significant deals over the last couple of days. Maybe that will change today or tomorrow. But the Yankees have acquired an outfielder. His name is Austin Slater. They got him from the Chicago White Sox. They'll get something back in return that's probably not relevant for discussion on this show. And also the Atlanta Braves got a relief pitcher named Tyler Kinley from the Colorado Rockies. The Braves not necessarily buying players, but if they do sell other relief pitchers, then Kinley would be somebody that would fill in for their bullpen the rest of the season. Also, the Orioles lead the Toronto Blue Jays in the first inning of their game today. Ryan O'Hearn, subject of trade rumors, hit a 3-run home run off Jose Barrios. Orioles 3, Blue Jays nothing in the first inning. Coming up next, we will be joined by Matt Stryker here on the show. You catch him on Fantasy Sports Day on the weekends. We'll talk some fantasy football and also talk about the passing of Hulk Hogan. So stay with us here on SportsGrid as we continue right after this.
in my mind, I was able to think and process. And if I let him get back up, he's going to get back up. I was like, let me finish this right now. And I caught him with that left hook, and then I caught him again with that right hook just to make sure the job was done, because I was calculating his hands wasn't touching the ground and his knees weren't touching the ground, but I know he was still going down. To make sure he wasn't getting back up, I had to let those last two off, man.
Combat Sports Report. Only on SportsGrid.
Sadiq Bey coming off the bench. Alvarado missed a lot of time. Jordan Hawkins has had his moments. So, and remember, they picked out even a guy like Kevon Looney off the bench. So to me, they could be there. You know what? And it's crazy because last year I was so big on them, and now I'm off of them. But I'm going to say it. Fly Pelican. 7-1. Fly Pelican. Fly Pelican fly. 7-1. What's the...
Here's why JY is great. Because sometimes I almost, it's tough when I sell JY, because now what will happen is, right? I mean, listen, it's the middle of the summer. You know what I mean? And what's going to happen in 2 months from now, JY's going to go, now listen, me and K-Dub love these Pelicans. I'm like, when did I say that? When did I don't remember that one, JY.
Betting above the rim. Only on SportsGrid.
So I drafted Aaron Jones in my dynasty league, but he's like my fourth running back, to let you know that people don't really believe in him. And by the way, you play in a dynasty league, I always play to win this year. I don't worry about next year. I want to win now. Flags fly forever. I'll worry about next year. So, but I got Aaron Jones last year, 1138. So he's going to drop that down by almost 50% not to get this total here. Yeah, I think he gets. I'll take the over.
Fantasy Sports Today. Only on SportsGrid.
Each and every Sunday morning during the football season, you're going to want to tune into Fantasy Sports Today, because Joe Pisapia and Matt Stryker will get you covered on all the latest news, notes, and information to help you set your fantasy football lineups. And draft season is here as well. So let's bring in Matt to discuss some fantasy football. And it's great to catch up with Matt here on the show. And before we get to some football, my gosh, I realized that we have Matt here on the show who had some incredible years as a professional wrestler. And this past week, we just saw the passing of the most popular professional wrestler of all time in Hulk Hogan. And so, Matt, I guess my first question to you would be, when you found out about this, what were your thoughts, your feelings, and certainly, sharing a period of time that Hogan was arguably, the single most watched athlete in the world?
Yeah, thanks for having me. I mean, you hit the nail on the head. I don't think anyone was able to do more for bringing an art form into the mainstream than Hulk Hogan. No one has done it before or since. So that morning, I mean, I think we all have our routine. We check our phone, we see the news, and we go about our day. But that morning, I kind of just sat at the foot of the bed just for a moment and kind of let that one sink in. A lot of people have their opinions about the man, but the performer, I'm hopeful people remember how that performer made us feel. We believed in the pageantry of pro wrestling, good versus evil, and I think Hulk Hogan embodied that.
I think that when you look at Hogan's career, Matt, and I know that there's been so much said of it, do you feel like he was able to just sort of transform into this larger-than-life character because of the person that he was, or the personality? Because I just kind of felt that once he transitioned from being the world's most popular athlete, as we would call a face, to being somebody that was not, on the flip side of it, it felt like that his popularity even got bigger.
Yeah, I think it's charisma. It's the ability to ad-lib and improvise, but also Joe Montana had Jerry Rice. Madison Bumgarner had Buster Posey. Hulk Hogan had Vince McMahon. And I don't think either could have existed so grandly in their space without the other. But it's a testament to the showman ability of Hulk Hogan. He was able to entertain you at any time, no matter what.
It was a great, incredible run for the WWE and WWF at that time. And by the way, for those people who have not watched the Vince McMahon documentary, I thought it was very well done. Fantastic piece of doc. Okay, so let's get to what's really important to Matt this time of the year: baseball in the fantasy world and football in the fantasy world. Matt, here we go. The month of August, we're going to turn the corner. Everyone's going to be drafting. And It's funny, this day and age, we're going to talk about some potential sleepers in the backfield, running backs. Matt, everybody knows everybody at this point, so it's kind of hard to identify what a sleeper actually is. But to me, the way I identify it is somebody who I'm looking at, like you, liking somebody more than somebody else does. So let's get into a couple of names here going into the season.
All right, so you're 100% right about how do we define sleeper? How do we define bust? How do we define value? Well, let's use the ADP, where these players are being drafted, to use that as our barometer. So when we're talking sleepers, I like guys that are going outside of the ADP that everyone is focused on. So let's go to the Los Angeles Chargers. Their offensive line is in the top 10. Offensive coordinator Greg Roman loves to run the football. Enter Najee Harris. Granted, he lit a firework into his eye. That's why he has the O tag on him when you look. But Najee Harris has rushed for at least 1,000 yards in each of his last 4 seasons. He has a contract where incentives will kick in at 1,050 yards for the season, so he has motivation. I understand the Chargers brought in Omarion Hampton, but Harris's passing down ability makes him really intriguing to me. And Craig, I think that offensive line is going to give a boost to everyone, including guys like Trey Harris and Najee Harris.
I think that Harris is interesting because his ADP is dropping, Matt, during fantasy football draft season because of the issue that he had on July 4th. We haven't necessarily seen him, but Omarion Hampton is there as well. They also have Hassan Haskins as their third string running back. And then they have a young player by the name of Kimani Vidal, who was at the top of everybody's sleepers list last year, but nobody wants to admit that he was a zero and they were all wrong. Anyway, now let's get to the New York Giants and their running back situation. I mean, it's true, right? Now let's get to the running back situation on the New York Giants. And certainly no stranger if you played fantasy football to see Tyrone Tracy bust out of nowhere last year, jump ahead of Devin Singletary, who, I suppose is kind of on the cut line here for the Giants if their young running back that they drafted, who was so amazing down the stretch, Cam Scadaboo, gets a real good look for the Giants. Do you feel that that is the case? Because if he takes over as the RB2, we could see the end of Singletary in New York.
So Joe Pisapia and I talked about this, I believe it was 2 Sundays ago, and I'm sure we'll be talking about it quite a bit. There is a chance that a guy like Cam Scadaboo, who's very powerful, can bowl over a linebacker in week 4. And all of Giant Stadium erupts with boo, boo. That can transcend football in a stadium like that. For a team like the Giants, who, look, their offensive line and their schedule doesn't do them any favors at all. But Scadaboo is also a passing down back. You mentioned Tracy. Tracy had 5 fumbles and a few eyebrow-raising drops last year. It wouldn't surprise me if Cam Scadaboo becomes the darling right around week 5 or 6.
He was fantastic in college football at the end of last year. I mean, unstoppable in the bowl game too. Okay, so ADP 3 this season over at Fantasy Pros is Saquon Barkley. I mean, coming off one of the greatest seasons at running back you'll ever see. And so, Matt, I'll ask you about him. And then I know you have another player on Miami that you're saying to be a little bit wary of this year. Tell us why.
So I want to be careful with busts. I like to interact a lot with our fans on social media. At SportsGrid TV. And I might get some pushback on this, but I think Saquon Barkley's mileage last year burdens the ADP. The offensive line of Philadelphia is elite, but Saquon Barkley carried the ball over 340 times last year, and history does not bode well for those guys next season. Again, I defer to Joe Pisapia, the author of the Fantasy Black Book. He has a great video out there. You can look it up where he parodies this. I think he uses the Incredibles and AI. He does great things. But overall, it's that Barkley is in line for a regression based off of what he did last year. So for me, that qualifies as a bust. Oh, my phone's lighting up already, folks. I love you guys.
Yeah, I wouldn't worry about that because I think that some people feel the same way on both of those players. So how about bounce back candidates, Matt, for the upcoming season? You have a player, of course, certainly in Jonathan Taylor, who people forget just a couple of years ago was the #1 overall pick in fantasy football, and you like a tight end as well.
Yep, we'll start with Jonathan Taylor. He rushes behind a top 10 offensive line. In case you're sending a trend here, offensive lines matter. Guys need protection. Even after being decimated, the Colts offensive line still ranked 4th in run block win rate last year. Also, Taylor missed time last year, but still managed 1,400 yards and 11 touchdowns. Craig, this is a guy that I think is primed for a bounce back. I've been giving you a lot of running backs, but if we have time, I can talk about a different position if you'd like.
Let me ask you one question just conceptually. There may be people who are watching that are getting ready to set their league up, Matt, for the season, whether it's, a dynasty league or any. When do you think the appropriate time to draft is? You hear so many people in our industry say do it early and get ahead. Some people say do it later and wait, just make sure you have no injuries. That's usually the way that I do it. What do you subscribe to?
So it depends in A, how many leagues in which you play, and B, what is the prize in these leagues? Are these just leagues for fun, or are these leagues that really matter? I'm with you, Craig. I like to draft with the most information possible. We live in a time and age where information is power, and if you neglect information, you're choosing ignorance. We have a choice now. So yes, as close to day one as possible for the NFL season is when I like to draft, when I have all the information after I'm done watching every single program on this network.
Me too, Matt. Appreciate you coming on. Have a great show this Sunday, and we'll see you again soon. Thanks for appearing on the show.
Thanks, everybody. We'll see you.
All right, Matt Stryker joining us here. You can catch Fantasy Sports Today every Sunday morning, 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. Eastern, exclusively here on SportsGrid. Coming up next, Robert Murray joins us courtesy of Fansided to go over the very Major League Baseball's trade deadline. So stay with us here on SportsGrid. We'll be back after this quick timeout. Don't go away. Baseball trade deadline discussion is coming up next.
My mind, I was able to think and process. And if I let him get back up, he's going to get back up. I was like, let me finish this right now. And I caught him with that left hook, and then I caught him again with that right hook just to make sure the job was done, because I was calculating his hands wasn't touching the ground and his knees weren't touching the ground, but I know he was still going down. To make sure he wasn't getting back up, I had to let those last two off, man.
Combat Sports Report. Only on SportsGrid.
Sadiq Bey come off the bench. Alvarado missed a lot of time. Jordan Hawkins has had his moments. So and remember, they picked out even a guy like Kevon Looney off the bench. So to me, they could be there. You know what? And it's crazy because last year I was so big on them, and now I'm off of them. But I'm going to say it. Fly Pelican. 7-1. Fly Pelican. Fly Pelican fly. 7-1. What's the...
So, here's why JY is great, because sometimes it's tough when I sell JY, because now what will happen is, right? I mean, listen, it's the middle of the summer. You know what I mean? And what's going to happen in 2 months from now, JY's going to go, now listen, me and K-Dub love these Pelicans. I'm like, when did I say that? Whoa, I don't remember that one, JY.
Betting above the rim. Only on SportsGrid.
So I drafted Aaron Jones in my dynasty league, but he's like my fourth running back, to let you know that people don't really believe in him. And by the way, when you play in a dynasty league, I always play to win this year. I don't worry about next year. I want to win now. Flags fly forever. I'll worry about next year. So, but I got Aaron Jones last year, 11.38. So he's going to drop that down by almost 50%, not to get this total here. Yeah, I think he gets. I'll take the over.
Fantasy Sports Today, only on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. Of course, Major League Baseball's trade deadline's coming up tomorrow at 6 p.m. Eastern, and it's for my next guest. And honestly, for me as well, more for my next guest than for me. It's a very stressful time because you're trying to break stories. I don't think people fully understand what goes into this. They think it's just like so easy to do. It is super, super challenging to be able to beat everybody in the industry. And so I will fight with our next guest, Robert Murray, for some of those stories over the next 24 to 36 hours. But We always are friends in this industry, and it's competitive. But Robert, there's no putting the phone down now until tomorrow at 6.
No, it's been that way, and I appreciate you having me on. It's been crazy ever since this morning. I was awoken at about 4 a.m. with a bunch of texts and calls, and it seems like today is really when the market is finally starting to open up a little bit. Teams are becoming more serious, more intentional with their calls and their actions. So I'm expecting now and then through tomorrow's deadline to just be totally crazy. So I'm ready for it. I think we could have some big moves coming. So let's dive into it.
All right, so let's start here, because for our shows, Robert, really the key story of the week in baseball, because we're a sports betting network, is talking about Emmanuel Clase, who in all likelihood has no chance of being traded because he's on the away list, but being paid while they investigate him for sports betting. So I would imagine we will not hear his name, but the Guardians are one of those teams that are always looking toward now and to the future. So which way do you think they go here, Robert? Because any team that wins 5-6 games in a row is right back in it, but it doesn't seem to be a plan for Cleveland moving forward. Could they end up moving any other names, you think, at the deadline here?
Yeah, they're the team to watch. And even before Clase was placed on leave, they were having conversations with team about Clase. And then all of a sudden, they just totally shifted gears. They went from being open to discussing him to then not being willing to discuss him at all. And teams were wondering, why exactly is that? Well, obviously being placed on leave, it totally takes him out of the trade market. And it leaves so many, it answers, or it gives us so many different questions here as to what they could do. And my guess is we're going to be looking at a sell here from the Guardians. And Stephen Kwan is the name that everyone in baseball is watching at this point. I think there's a fair chance that he is ultimately moved. And the team that, to me, makes the most sense is the San Diego Padres. And AJ Preller loves big moves. Kwan is not signed to a big salary by any means. He's controllable. He's a very good player. They need an outfielder. The stars seem to align there for sure. And I will see if they're ultimately the team that gets him if he is traded. But if he is moved, San Diego's the team I'm watching.
Yeah, it's so fascinating to me how every year Robert San Diego just has more prospects to trade. I don't get it. Like every single year they're involved in every deal somehow. This is a testament to their organization that they could get these guys in a position to be traded. So other names that are bigger, and we'll go through a quick list here of potential players that could be moved. So of this list here, I see Dylan Cease, Eugenio Suarez, Zach Gallen, Merrill Kelly, Charlie Morton, and Luis Robert. So I'm going to guess, Robert, of the list that I see here, there's 6 names. I got 4 being moved here. I got Suarez, Kelly, Morton, and Robert, and Cease maybe, but I can't guarantee it. And the same for Zach Gallen. I can't guarantee that as well. So I guess I would throw it to you and ask you if it's the same feeling for you.
Yeah, I think there's a good chance that the majority of those guys are ultimately going to be moved. But the one that I might disagree with you on is Luis Robert Jr. And here's why. This might be controversial. And the White Sox's stance on this is that they are not going to just give him up just to give him up. They value Luis Robert Jr. He's been better since his early struggles. And they're at least indicating internally that they're willing to pick up his $20 million option for next season, and that they're going to have him for at least 2 more seasons. To me, that kind of screams posturing and trying to signal the teams like up your offers. But it seems like they're intentional with that thinking. So whether it's San Diego or the 2 New York teams or whoever else, they're going to be involved. But I don't think it's a guarantee that he's moved. Morton definitely is going to be moved. Gallen remains to be seen there. I think Merrill Kelly is a tremendous option for teams looking for pitching depth. But the one that I'm just not certain about is Luis Robert Jr.
So I think that's fair. The one name that I would assume is moved, but Robert, I think that this is going to be a 559 deal, and that's Eugenio Suarez. 36 home runs this season, 87 runs driven in. What would the motivation for the Diamondbacks be to do? I mean, I know the motivation for us is because it's fun, but why would they do anything until they just get the very best and final and trade him right at 6:00 tomorrow?
No, that's for sure. And Suarez is the big trade chip that everyone is watching besides Stephen Kwan. And Suarez, there was a very strong argument that he should have been traded already. But him getting hit by the pitch the other night sent a scare throughout baseball, and the team's looking at his bat as the number one option. But he's going to be back in the lineup today. He is very likely going to be traded. There's so many teams that are involved here. You have the Cubs, the Mariners, the Brewers are kind of lurking in the shadows here. There's so many different teams that are involved that the price is going to be very high. They're going to be in position to maximize it. And thank goodness for their sake that he's healthy, because if he wasn't and he went on the injured list with a broken hand or something, it would have set back their, I don't want to say rebuild, but retooling by quite a bit.
Let's close it out with the Marlins. They have a lot of pieces that could potentially be moved. I know a lot of folks, Robert, are going to lean on me for this stuff, but let's get into it here with Sandy Alcantara, who pitched well yesterday, 5 shutout innings. There's certainly a possibility 24, 36 hours that he is moved, and there'll be no shortage of teams that'll be lined up to get him. It just comes down to the same thing. Miami's not in a rush here. They could just hold him, trade him in the offseason, or not do anything at all. But it does seem to be the growing senses that they're at least seriously entertaining a lot of teams on this.
No, it definitely seems that way. And you talk to rival teams around the game, it seems like it's kind of like a 50-50 chance. And as you said, like, they can hold on to him and try to have him establish the value to where it was in previous years when he was like easily one of the best pitchers in baseball. So they're in a position where they can be patient, but there's so many teams that are needing starting pitching that they could end up getting an offer that they can't refuse and ultimately move him.
All right, Robert, charge the phone. Keep it charged. Keep it going.
Always be charging.
All right, we'll be talking soon. Thanks for coming on.
I appreciate you. Thank you.
All right, Robert Murray of Fanside. And we'll be back to wrap it up with some last looks.
My mind, I was able to think and process. And if I let him get back up, he's going to get back up. I was like, let me finish this right now. And I caught him with that left hook, and then I caught him again with that right hook just to make sure the job was done, because I was calculating his hands wasn't touching the ground and his knees weren't touching the ground, but I know he was still going down. To make sure he wasn't getting back up, I had to let those last 2 off, man.
Combat Sports Report. Only on SportsGrid.
Sadiq Bey coming off the bench. Alvarado missed a lot of time. Jordan Hawkins has had his moments. So, and remember, they picked out even a guy like Kevon Looney off the bench. So to me, they could be there. You know what? And it's crazy because last year I was so big on them, and now I'm off of them. But I'm going to say it. Fly Pelican. 7-1. Fly Pelican. Fly Pelican fly. 7-1. Worth it.
Here's why JY is great, because sometimes I almost, it's tough when I sell JY, because now what will happen is, right? I mean, listen, it's the middle of the summer. You know what I mean? And what's going to happen in 2 months from now, JY's going to go, now listen, me and K-Dub love these Pelicans. I'm like, when did I say that? I don't remember that one. JY.
Betting above the rim. Only on SportsGrid.
So I drafted Aaron Jones in my dynasty league, but he's like my 4th running back, to let you know that people don't really believe in him. And by the way, when you're playing a dynasty league, I always play to win this year. I don't worry about next year. I want to win now. Flags fly forever. I'll worry about next year. So, but I got Aaron Jones last year, 1138. So he's going to drop that down by almost 50% not to get this total here. Yeah, I think he gets. I'll take the over.
Fantasy Sports Today. Only on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. As we get ready to wrap it up, we've got a fun story in baseball about a player being traded and then facing his old team. Also, speaking of older, an older gentleman is looking to make a debut in baseball by using a very specialized pitch that we don't hear that much about anymore. We'll also get to the very latest on the Cleveland Browns. Feels like we always do the Browns here at the end of the show. It is time now for some last licks. All right, let's start off with the Cleveland Browns. There's a lot of speculation that Cleveland is going to be in a position this year to maybe acquire the number 1 overall pick in the NFL draft. Now, we know how that goes. Teams generally, while they say they're not tanking, they are. But when they are tanking, they're still trying to win. We've seen teams win when you think they're tanking. Honestly, who really knows how these teams operate at the end of the year? But the speculation is that Cleveland, if they did pick first, and they'll battle that out with the Saints and maybe another team too, that they could draft Arch Manning, who is the quarterback at the University of Texas. He's going to start for the first time this year. Quinn Ewers started for them last year. Browns owner Jimmy Haslam, they actually got on record on speculation that he's already looking at the 2026 NFL draft, which is unusual. He said, if you know the Manning family, and I don't know Arch at all, I'd bet that he stays in college 2 years. I don't think that's worth discussing. Really interesting, because as you know, that usually doesn't happen in college. Anytime a player is projected to be the number 1 overall pick, they come out and they enter the NFL. So for Haslam to mention this is a little odd, didn't need to, but he was asked and could have just said no comment, leads me to believe that this early in the season, it's really important for your owner and your organization to at least pretend that you're trying to win. There are still a lot of games to play and a lot of tickets to be sold. The last thing that they're going to be doing is saying that we're in a tanking year, which Cleveland potentially is. Meanwhile, a funny scene yesterday for Sir Anthony Dominguez, who was on the Baltimore Orioles in Game 1 of their Game 2 of their doubleheader with the Toronto Blue Jays, because Dominguez, after the first game of their doubleheader, was traded to the Toronto Blue Jays. And so what ended up happening was Dominguez changed his jersey, went over to the other locker room, and ended up putting on a Toronto Blue Jays jersey where one of the numbers was actually stitched on wrong. Hard to see, but true. To make matters even crazier, Dominguez came into the game to face his former team in the Baltimore Orioles. Now, this has happened before in the history of Major League Baseball, but I don't know that they've gotten the number wrong on the back of the jersey before. Now, to be clear, you can see the numbers actually there. It's just upside down. But this is why baseball is so much fun, to have these hug watches and things happen. And get ready, because the next day or two, you're going to certainly see a lot more of that. All right, now, finally, do you remember back in the day in Major League Baseball, we had players who threw a pitch called the knuckleball? I know there are some folks out there that are like, Craig's making me feel stupid. Of course I know what the knuckleball is. Well, I mean, this day and age, there's only like 1 or 2 pitchers even thrown in the big leagues. One of them is Matt Waldron on the San Diego Padres. Well, there is a man right now, he is 65 years old, and what he would like to do is come back to play Major League Baseball after not playing organized ball, never pitch in the big leagues, and thinks that he could throw a knuckleball and succeed at the big league level, which is sort of incredible to think that this could actually happen, because the knuckleball is a pitch that is moving away from baseball and not necessarily moving toward it. Hall of Famer named Phil Niekro specialized at the knuckleball. Same for Charlie Huff, who pitched when he was almost 50 years old. But velocity has been king in baseball. Can somebody actually do this? I personally think that it's a great way to succeed. If you can't throw 95, 100 miles an hour, why not throw the knuckleball? And yeah, we'll see if this guy gets a shot at maybe it'll start off with independent ball first, by the way, and then minor league baseball, and then maybe Major League Baseball. But seems to be far-fetched for me. 65 years old, though. Gotta give him credit. Give it a shot. All right, a lot of guests here on the show today. Hopefully I can get them all in here. But we had Robert Murray on the program. We had Matt Stryker. We had Sam McQuillan on the show. Frank, who am I missing? Okay, so I got those 3 correct. Oh, Jeff Nelson was on the program today talking some baseball. So those were just some of the guests here on our show. We want to thank also our director, Luke, and for my producer, Frank, I'm Craig Mish. We'll be back for our next edition of the show. It's going to be a busy show tomorrow, folks, at noon Eastern, because we've got the trade deadline. If you want to find out everybody that's been traded, you can download the SportsGrid app. We've got all it up there. News, notes, information, the latest on Major League Baseball, the odds, and all of the programming that we got going on here. And the app was updated approximately a few months ago, so make sure your streaming success is a lot cleaner there. For those of you who watch our show that's not on a TV and you like to use an Android or iPhone, just download that thing and you're all set. All right, have a great rest of your day. See you tomorrow for Deadline Day here on NewsWire.